The following program is brought to you by TZ Productions, celebrating KPTS's nearly 50 years of community support in South Central Kansas. Great starts here on KPTS.
Support also comes from viewers like you. Thank you.
This is the show where we attempt to peel away the skin and get to the heart of the matter. This week, our guest is a popular news personality who made it big in the Windy City and then decided there was no place like home.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Herndon. On Friday, a 21-year veteran of the Wichita Police Force was arrested.
Jeff Herndon is the evening anchor on KSN News. His polished yet down-home persona has made him a popular choice for Kansas television viewers. But this guy is no poser. He is the real deal. Herndon is a Kansan born and bred. A native of Hayesville, he graduated from Wichita State University. He began his television career as a part-time sports photographer in 1997 at Cake Channel 10. By 2001, Herndon was anchoring the weekend sports, and then in 2004, he made the leap to weeknight news anchor. Teaming up with the popular and charming Susan Peters, Herndon's star was on the rise. Then in 2013, he left for a big-time job at Fox 32 in Chicago, where he proved popular on the 9 p.m. news. But after 4 years, Herndon dropped a bombshell and announced he was quitting and returning to Wichita. Now back in Kansas with his wife and 3 children, he serves as assistant news director and 5, 6, and 10 p.m. anchor at KSN. That's the resume. Now it's time to get real. Why did he return to Kansas, and what does he hope to accomplish now that he's back? There are lots of questions to ask, so let's get started. It's time to go one-on-one with Jeff Herndon now. I'm excited to welcome a familiar face to the table this week. Usually, he's the one asking the questions, but this time, I'll be asking the questions. Jeff Herndon, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, you had a big-time job in Chicago.
Yeah.
It's the third market in the nation. Mm-hmm. And you were in Wichita originally, had a job in Chicago. Why did you decide to come back?
Well, this is home, and I missed Kansas. I missed Wichita. And I love Chicago, but I think for me, I was at a point in my life where I felt like I wanted to be home. I wanted to try to maybe have an impact in my home community, my hometown, and it was just the right time to come back. The timing, everything worked out very well. So,
what kind of impact are you looking forward to having here?
Well, I feel like, anything. I'm very passionate about local news. And I see it as a service industry, and I think that it's an opportunity for me to come back and sort of serve the community again. A lot had changed for 4 years prior to me leaving to when I came back, so it wasn't simply just sliding back into an old role that I had 4 years prior to leaving. It feels like a whole new opportunity, a whole new city, a whole new vibe.
But you had that opportunity to make an impact.
Yeah.
But you decided to leave it.
I did, and I'll tell you, when I got the call about the Chicago opportunity, I was very comfortable at Cake TV. I worked at Channel 10 for, I started there I must have been there, I think I started there in 96, and this was 2013 at the time. And I thought to myself, if I was ever going to do something, if I was ever going to make a move, if I was ever going to try something different in this life, now would be the time to do it, because Chicago is one of those media markets where people that are in the industry, it's a destination place. People want to try it. And I thought, well, I may not ever have this opportunity again, so I might as well go and try it.
You have to move out in broadcasting to move up.
Yes, you do.
Right. What were you like as a kid growing up in Hayesville? That's where you're from originally.
I am from Hayesville. I'm a proud Hayesvillian, and I think that Hayesville, you know, if you're not familiar with Hayesville, it's always been, I've always been attracted to underdogs. I'm an underdog guy, and Hayesville's always been sort of an underdog town. It's not the Derbies, it's not the Andovers. Hayesville has always sort of been sort of that second thought town in Kansas, and the people of Hayesville sort of take on that you know, that vibe of being sort of the underdog and forgotten. And so growing up there, I was very proud to be part of Hayesville, and it was great. You know, growing up there, it's a wonderful little town, and but I still love that town. I'm there often. I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Well, you made your foray into television on the sports side.
Yes.
How did you get into news?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was working as a weekend sports broadcaster at Cake, and our news director came to me one day and said, "Hey, listen, you know, I could get you a better schedule. You work Monday through Friday. It's a little better pay. Would you mind, you know, doing a little audition to see how it'd work out?" And I said, "Sure." You know, I've been working weekends, you know, most of my career. And so I did it. We auditioned, and they said, "Sure, we'd like to move you." And I thought, "Oh, great. A little more money, better schedule. I'll just go through that door and see where it leads." And that was that.
And it led you to Chicago.
It led me right to Chicago.
And now you're back.
I'm back.
So did you plan when you were growing up to become a television personality?
No.
What was your goal?
No intention. I didn't. I was in high school. I was a freshman, and there was a girl that I liked, and she was in a media class, and I thought, well, you know, I'm gonna get in that class. Got in the class. Didn't work out with the girl, by the way, and but I got into the class, and I liked it. It was fun. And growing up as a kid, I always liked to tell stories and sort of act out and be funny. And then when I got to college, I needed to pick a major, and I thought, well, broadcasting was. I got a little experience doing that, and I got it at Wichita State. We did the Studio B. We won some college awards, and then I needed a part-time job, so I got an internship at Cake, and then they offered me a job. I never had any intention ever growing up to be on TV or any of this.
What did you want to become?
You know, it's been so long because I don't remember. I've been in this so long now. I've been so ingrained in this profession, in this career. Looking back, I think I just, you know, I didn't really have anything that I wanted. I didn't think, you know, maybe a mechanic. I've always enjoyed cars. My grandfather was a self-taught engineer, and I enjoyed cars and tinkering in the garage. But it never really, once things started rolling in high school and I just kept going through taking different paths, that was that.
So when you got into the local television scene, local news, who were your role models? Or did you have any at all?
You know, professional role models?
Professional, right.
Well, you're growing up here in Wichita. It was, you know, Larry Hatterberg was a guy that we looked up to and admired, and you know, I watched Cornish and Cindy Close, Susan Peters as a kid, Cindy Close a little bit later, and there were, you know, Rose Stanley. There's a whole lot of people that.
But who was the one person who said, when I grow up, I want to be like that person?
There's nobody.
Nobody.
No, I don't think I've ever really modeled myself or tried to be like anybody else. I think that one of the things that that has helped me in this career is that I'm just me. You know, and I tell that to a lot of the young people getting into it. Don't try to be somebody else. Just be you. And that's helped me out quite a bit.
So who do you compare yourself to in the world of broadcast journalism?
Right now, I don't think anybody. I don't try to compare. I have a lot of respect.
No Walter Cronkite, Dan
No,
Rather?
no, they were so unique. They're just one of a kind, and I think that's what makes broadcasters special, and people, especially on the local level. The uniqueness is what I think is something to be cherished. So I don't see myself like anybody else, especially not those guys, where they're just on a different level. So,
what is your aspiration as a journalist? Where do you want to go with this?
You know, there's a kind of a broad answer to that. Hatterberg said, and I think it was on your show, I'm pretty sure it was on your show, he said that he was proud to work in television when television meant something.
Right.
And I think you asked me where I want to go with this. I hope that when this crazy journey comes to an end, I can say that I was proud to work in an era that made television mean something again. And that's kind of where I'm at. Where I want this to go in the future, I'm always looking at ways I want to be part of the group that helps this industry evolve and change and move forward. And it's important, because if we don't change and we don't evolve, then we're going to die. So.
You've worked in Chicago. Mm-hmm. You've worked in Wichita.
Yeah.
Compare and contrast the two, not in terms of size of the cities, but journalism, news.
Not a lot of difference, honestly. I was blessed to work in Wichita. I mean, when I was working in Wichita, I worked alongside Susan Peters and folks that could have gone anywhere in the country. Very talented. Mm-hmm. And Chicago's the same way. There were people there were talented people in Wichita, and there were talented people in Chicago. So there wasn't to me, I didn't see it didn't feel much different professionally going to the television station.
So doing the news in Chicago is the same as doing it in
very
Wichita.
Similar, yeah.
Very similar.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about news today, the direction it's going.
Okay.
You mentioned Susan Peters and you mentioned Larry Hatterberg.
Yeah.
They've said that news has changed.
Yes.
And not for the better. What's your take?
Boy, how much time do we have here? I think using the word news to sort of describe, it's to put it in a broad sense like that. I don't know. I think we need to narrow that down a little bit.
Television news we're talking about.
I think that, and here's an interesting look, and here's how it is. We don't do anything like we did in 85, 95, 2005. We don't build cars the same. A lot of the way we consume our content is different now. Our society is always changing. Mm-hmm. And I find it, and I'm not trying to disagree with Susan or Larry at all, but my perspective is...
Well, you have the right to.
I do, of course. But if they see this, I don't want to run into them at the grocery store. I get into a debate, because I will lose that debate every single time, especially against Susan. We don't make cars the same way. We cook our food differently. There's a lot of things that we don't do the same. We've evolved, we've changed. Things get better, they get different. Same thing with consuming content. We consume our content differently. But there are several local television stations across the country that are still trying to hammer out a local newscast exactly the way they did it in 85, 95, and 2005. It has to change. We're different. Our society is different. And
So how has it changed?
Well, I think right now it's changed because we know there has to be change. We just don't know how to change. And so
we're in the digital world.
Right. So you're seeing a lot of local television stations. They know we got to change. We're just not sure how we want to change. And so they're trying a lot of different things, and some of it works and some of it doesn't. I think also you have a situation where it used to be you'd have a news reporter, a journalist, and you have a photojournalist, you might have an editor. Well, those are all the same people now. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those people in a market like this are in their early 20s. It's probably their first job. And so you think about that. And I think about how you take someone that's not from here, that you drop them off in Wichita, you give them a camera, you have them do 2 stories a day. They got to edit those stories as well. Plus they have to cultivate leads, enterprise stories, and then also live a life. one would argue that the product might suffer, that things are missed, that the stories aren't quite complete. Maybe they're missing elements that were not missed.
Is that
20
because
years
of
ago.
inexperience, or is it because of economics?
Well, I think they go both. I think they kind of go hand in hand. I think economics is what is propelling certain television stations in certain markets to hire inexperience.
Right.
And plus, it's just a different job. It's a different job today than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
What about the sense for instant gratification? Wanting it now, the news. You can watch the news on your phone. You
Right.
can watch it whenever you want it, which is now leading to the reduction in viewership for television stations, especially news.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with that?
Well, you have to find a way to grow your audience. You have to find a way. And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what that is.
That's for the marketing people, I think.
Well, marketing has a big, yeah. But I don't know the answer to that question. But I know there's a lot of people probably in a small room right now, a lot smarter than myself, that are thinking about ways to do that.
But how have those elements impacted the coverage of news today?
The elements of instant gratification
And technology.
Yes.
Yes.
How has it impacted viewership, or how we cover the news?
You covering the news.
How we cover the news. Oh, man, it's a game changer. Yeah, it's tough. And, you know, again, I don't know how much time we have. This is a great conversation. I love talking about this thing. You know, let's go to social media, number one. I mean, social media used to be, right now, social media is really driving, at least in this market, it kind of drives our news coverage. You'll see a post on social media, somebody will post a video, and that leads to a story, and then you're doing a story about a viral video, when it used to be the other way around. Maybe you would do a good story, and then it would go viral. Well, now you're doing stories about the stories that have gone viral. It's very confusing. I know, people at home are like, But then add you throw in that on social media, anybody can say anything at any time about anything they want. And if you're a news organization and you're not responsible, you can take what somebody says on the internet and you can use that as one of your sources, but you haven't confirmed that. So it's really interesting. So I think it's changed it. I mean, I don't want to go down the road to say that it has created a sloppy environment for local television stations, because I think, especially in this market, the 3 stations here, the 3 network affiliates, do a very good job at confirming things with 2 sources and not jumping at anything they see on the internet and throwing it up during their newscast. So I think there still is journalistic integrity within this news market. I can't speak for other news markets. I don't know. I know in Chicago we took great care in making sure that we weren't getting sloppy with stories that perhaps we found online or on social media.
Now, you are also the assistant news director at KSN, and the main anchor now, so to speak, at least for now.
At least for now, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
How would you change the world of television business, how you do news versus raise funds, or not raise, we raise money at KPTS, but sell commercials?
How do we change that?
Yes, I mean, because sometimes it's said that commercial buyers have a great influence on the newscast and what is covered. I mean, that I know for a fact.
Right. So
how do you improve that?
I'm not sure. How do we improve
that kind of relationship? The pay to play mentality.
I got it. Yeah. Yes. So I understand. How do we improve that? How do we make sure that doesn't influence our coverage? Is that
right?
That's what sales managers are for. And news directors. You know, that is a conflict, I think, in every market.
Yes.
It does happen. Things happen. People are approached. You just have to hope that you're with a team that has the journalistic integrity.
So important.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. Local news is interesting. It's funny. I talk a lot at Wichita State at some of the journalism classes, and I'll ask the class, how many of you sit down and watch the 5 o'clock news, the 6 o'clock news, and the 10 o'clock news? Maybe one hand goes up. And again, I go back to the changes. Mm-hmm. 10 o'clock news, 5, 6, and 10. I think eventually that's going to have to change.
Well, you've watched this program several times, as you said.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Well, thank you. So you know that we play a little game most of the time.
Yeah. Yes.
And I like to do that with you.
Okay.
So let's play a little game, and I will start a sentence, and you finish it.
All right.
The first thing I think about in the morning is?
Working out.
Ah.
Yeah.
The last thing I think about at night is?
Do I have to be honest? Do I have to give honest answers, or can I? The last thing I think
you
about.
You are a journalist, so you were talking here credibility, trust, believability.
Okay, so read that sentence again.
The last thing I think about at night is?
Thank God that day's over.
Oh.
That's yeah.
Well, that's a good thought.
Well, it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
One thing that really makes me angry is?
Fake news.
Fake news?
Yeah.
How do you define that?
I think that it makes me angry when there are stories that we do or stories that are done that are accurate, that are vetted, that are true, that are done with the journalistic integrity that they should be done with, and there are individuals that if they don't like the story right now, they can paint it with, oh, that's fake news. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a whole nother television program to do on how the internet is flooded with people who can do anything and pose as journalists. Everybody's a journalist now. Everybody can write anything they want about anybody.
And claim to be a journalist.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
Fake news.
I'm happiest when?
I'm fishing with my son.
Oh.
Yeah.
The source of my hope is?
Optimism.
Sometimes I wish?
Things that pop into my head, I can't say. Sometimes I wish I was 6 years old again. Yeah.
If I inherited $1 billion, I would?
Disappear.
Oh. And no one would find you.
Nobody would find me. You'd never hear from me again.
My favorite stories to cover are?
Ooh, that's a good one. My favorite stories to cover are stories of overcoming great obstacles, when people succeed when the elements are against them, overcoming the odds, those kinds of stories.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
One of my great regrets is?
Wow, you know what? I wouldn't say I have any regrets. I know. One of my great well, you know what? One of my great regrets is probably not having any regrets.
Oh.
Yeah, probably should throw some in there at some point in my life, but at this point, yeah.
One thing I would change about myself is, and that is the final game question.
You know, I wish I wasn't so impatient. I would like to have. Yeah, I'm an impatient person, and I've always wanted patience. So.
Well, here's an easy one. Tell us about your family, Jeff.
Well, I have a son who's 11. His name's Lakin. I have a stepdaughter named Tana, who's 17, and then a stepson, Tyler, who's 24, and my wife, Stephanie, and we're all Kansans. All grew up here, and that's Yeah.
You seem to be very proud to be a Kansan.
I am. Yeah, absolutely.
Why is that?
It's the greatest state in the country. I love it. We're the hardest working people. One thing about Kansans, and I'm not just, when I interviewed in Chicago, the news director and the vice president of Fox said, look, we love Kansans. You guys show up for work early and you don't leave early. And that's just, that's what we do. We work hard, and it's more of a blue collar feel. And I think that, Kansas is just, I think it's the best kept secret in the country. Especially Wichita and Hayesville and the suburbs. It's just, I'm in love with it.
Right.
I have great pride.
Good, because I like it too.
I'm glad you do, because
do.
I know you just arrived recently.
About 15 months ago.
Right, and so welcome.
Thank you.
I'm glad you like it.
So what have you learned about life over the last 5 years, Jeff?
Oh, a lot.
What are the key things?
Don't sweat the little things, and the older I get, the less I'm focused more on quality of life and spending time with family. And I think we get caught up, those in the media especially, maybe young people in general, get caught up with how much money you make and maybe where you live. You said earlier in this interview that in broadcasting you have to move out to move up. And I think that, and I hate that. It's true, but I hate that. I think that in our industry, success is viewed as equal to the market size that you work in. Well, he worked in Market 3. He must be successful and talented. And there are journalists and television personalities and people all across this country in small markets that are far more talented than I'll ever be. So I've just learned that really life is all about experiences. It's all about family and
community.
Yeah. And I'm not so caught up on how big a job you have.
With that said, where do you see yourself as a career person, say, in the next 20 years?
Retired.
That early?
Doing something. Well, I'd like to do something. I want to do as much as I can while I'm here. And it's not all about television or broadcasting. There are other things out there to experience that I hope that I'm fortunate enough to have the opportunity to experience some other things before it's all over.
Well, Jeff Herndon, you have good poise, personality, good anchor at KSN. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
One-on-one.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you.
Thanks.
And we're glad you took the time to watch our show. If you have a question or comment, please send us an email. The address is oneonone@kpts.org. I'm Victor Hogstrom. Thanks a lot, and we hope to see you next time for another edition, One-on-One.
The preceding program was brought to you by TZ Productions, supporting KPTS and the communities it serves in South Central Kansas. Great starts here on KPTS.
Support also comes from viewers like you. Thank you.